So we're due to hear from President Ramaphosa shortly. Of course, in the past year, these addresses have become regular features of our lockdown landscape. And while we don't know exactly what will be announced this evening, the economic impact of a year of restrictions has been extreme, and that surely has to be top of mind. Let's talk about the way forward now with political analyst and economist at Political Futures Consultancy, Daniel Silke. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. It's an interesting time for the President. Last night, of course, he announced the ANC-NEC's decision to enforce the disputed step-aside rule. Earlier in the day, great news from the Aspen factory in Gqeberha. 31 million COVID vaccines are going to be made available from Johnson & Johnson. Politically speaking, where is the President standing this evening?
Hello, Sally. Well, I think the President is stronger today than he was 2 days ago on the basis of both of those issues. He's almost been saved at the bell, although there's a tremendous logistical challenge for him to get this right, to get those 30 million jabs into the arms of South Africans. So I think that does help his political profile under great pressure and increasing pressure, as South Africans have witnessed many of their friends, family, and just about everybody else in many other countries of the world developing and developed get the jabs. So I think that's a tick, I suppose, for the President now compared to last week. And secondly, I think, look, he came out of a very bruising National Executive Committee meeting in which, by and large, the decisions taken were the decisions that he would have wanted to implement. In other words, effectively taking the battle to Secretary-General Ace Magashule, effectively also distancing the ANC from the radical economic transformation faction within the party, a rising faction within the party. So it is a better 24 hours for President Ramaphosa. But frankly, you know, the proof is in the pudding, as the old saying goes. Can he get all of these issues right according to his specifications and to the specifications of most South Africans? And the test will really be over the next month politically for him, and over the next 6 months to a year to perhaps even 18 months in terms of the vaccination rollout.
Yeah, so he's got a difficult balancing act within his own party and also, of course, nationally, trying to balance lives and livelihoods. It's interesting the Democratic Alliance has already issued a release saying there's simply no more room, given our economic dire straits, for national curfews to be tightened and for alcohol bans to be reimposed. Do you agree?
Well, I think there might be some wiggle room in some aspects here. I think you can play around with a curfew by an hour or two to make it look as though you're doing something. But remember, of course, that our daily case numbers have dropped quite substantially. So compared to the latter part of December, when we imposed the very rigorous sort of second wave lockdown, that was really reactive, as the figures were looking pretty grim. The figures are now looking a lot better. So I think the liquor industry, and for that matter, even the Democratic Alliance, have been saying, look, you know, on what basis can you impose rigorous restrictions when we have managed, notwithstanding the South African variant and the nasty nature of that, we have managed to effectively quell, at least as I speak, the number of cases and therefore the load on our hospital services. And I think given that, one has to look much more, I think, effectively at a broader range of measures, and not these measures that are restrictive, that are often arbitrarily applied, and that often really add to the deep distress, particularly in our restaurant, travel, liquor and leisure industries.
So what restrictions do you think would make sense for the President to consider tonight? The DA certainly saying it's time to look at localized restrictions.
Yeah, I think localized restrictions were always the way to go, but you know, to the best of one's knowledge, we are not looking at a particular series of hotspots in South Africa currently. I do think that gatherings are a risk in South Africa, gatherings of any substantive number, and I think there the President will probably have something to say. And I do think that perhaps on the issue of a curfew, just to manage the socializing that can take place over this extended period, there I think the President will have something to say. But I'm not convinced, and look, one mustn't preempt what the President is going to say, but I suppose that's my job. I'm not convinced that there really is a case to be made for a shopping list of restrictions tonight, other than more of a serious warning to South Africans. Although it does seem that South Africans often need regulation, they don't often take warnings to heed. I think it is going to be more of a talking to, rather than being prescriptive about what we can or what we can't do.
Well, thank you very much. A political analyst and economist at Political Futures Consultancy, Daniel Silke.